This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 507 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. It is Monday, March 27th, 2023. Happy birthday to my older brother, Max. He turned 37 today. Nice. I'm your host for this episode. I'm Sam Klein. I'm coming to you from New York City tonight. I'm joined only by Jason Evans, not by Donald Wine. Jason, good evening. How are you?
I'm great because we sort of suspected the news that we're about to talk about, but actually having it happen is a big deal. Big deal.
Yeah, big deal indeed. The first is he staying or is he going announcement coming out of Duke men's basketball today is that Tyrese Proctor, the starting point guard from this past season, is returning to Duke for his sophomore year. The video came out earlier. There were some highlights. There were a lot of tweets that came from all the various accounts that are part of the Duke men's basketball official social media presence, including Tyrese Proctor, excited to return for his sophomore year. He simply said, "I'm back," which is it's funny to think about the phrasing there because like the season just ended. It's not like
right.
he hasn't been gone, right? He's like still in class. He's taking the same classes that he was taking a week and 2 and 3 weeks ago. So,
well, in addition to saying the video just says I'm back, but he also spoke to some folks at ESPN, and I thought there were some really telling things that he said to ESPN. First of all, he spoke about having unfinished business. And look, I know everybody says that, but it's still great to hear. It's just the right attitude that you want. And then the other thing I loved was he said, we want to hang another banner. And he goes, I'm going to be there this summer. And this is a huge thing because remember, Sam, we talked about this extensively, that Tyrese Proctor was not at Duke last summer, that he, because of the visa situation and because he was playing for the Australian national team, he wasn't able to be at Duke. I feel like he arrived in like mid-August or so. It was well after.
I think right before the semester started in August.
Yeah. So he talked about how much he's looking forward to being on campus all summer and really bonding with the guys and beginning to form what they think will be a very special team. And he closed the article, from ESPN closes with him talking about wanting to hang another banner in Cameron. I don't think he's talking about no ACC tournament banner.
By the way, I should have added at the top that after the break and after we discuss Tyrese Proctor, we do have to talk about some future Blue Devils performances at the McDonald's All-American events so far this week.
Oh yeah.
Not in the actual All-American game, but the event. So we'll get to that after the break.
This is a great day if you're a Duke fan to feel a little bit giddy. You got a big player back and you got some glimpses of the future and you're just like, wow.
So when we talked about Tyrese Proctor this weekend or last week, Jason, we all said that, he could leave. There's a world in which he decides, look, the whole point of me coming early to Duke was to fast track the move to the NBA, but that the situation probably made more sense. So we don't need to rehash the why should he come back, but what are you expecting from him this coming season that we didn't get to see? And I think you're on the right track here that The big difference, of course, will be that he gets to spend the whole summer with his teammates and with the coaching staff, because by arriving in August, he didn't get that extra, call it 2-3 months of practice time without class going on, without the season happening, because as we know, there's only so much development that can go on in season.
Exactly. And I think one of the big things that you're going to get from him, we talked about the best man of freshmen is that they become sophomores. One of the big things I think you're going to get from Tyrese Proctor is going to be an improved understanding of how the college game works, how to succeed against guys at this level, because he just didn't have any experience at that. And the fact that he missed the summer meant that he literally, talk about hit the ground running. But, Jeremy Roach got hurt fairly early in the year. Tyrese Proctor was forced into a bigger role maybe than he originally envisioned for himself because of that. And there was a lot of adjustment that went on. This was a season where Tyrese Proctor averaged 9.4 points per game and 3.3 assists per game. But over Duke's final 11 games, which was the stretch that we talked about so much, the 10-game win streak and then the loss to Tennessee. But over Duke's final 11 games, the final month of the season, he averaged better than 10 points a game, 10.5 points per game, 4.4 assists per game, significantly only 1.4 turnovers per game. So almost a 3-for-1 assist to turnover ratio. Now, this is a guy who, in late January, early February, was getting like 3 turnovers per game. He was turning the ball over too much, and Duke was struggling because of it. And I just feel like the development you saw from him late in the year is going to be amplified by having a summer, as you said, Sam, to just focus on the things he needs to get better at. And the biggest thing he needs to get better at probably is his outside shot. He only hit 32% of his threes. I'll let you jump in for a second, but when you come back to me, Sam, I want to talk about how guys from freshman to sophomore year improve their outside shot, because it is significant.
I think that part of that development hopefully will come from him having more shooters around, right? Next year, Duke brings in some guards who should be better complements on the wing than what Proctor had available to him this year. The emergence of Dariq Whitehead at the end of the season notwithstanding, we know that Proctor is developing that outside shot. So I think that the shooting is part of it. He demonstrated in that final stretch what an elite defender he is already at the college level, and how much better he could get in a sophomore year, where again he has the time to develop the understanding of how the defense works, how to work with his teammates. I feel like as good as Duke was with Derek Lively manning, running the defense this year, especially at the end of the season, I feel like we're going to look up next year and we're going to be talking about how Tyrese Proctor is playing at an all ACC defensive caliber, if not an all-American defensive caliber, with the way that he's able to disrupt passing lanes, with the way that he's able to pester on the ball, with the way that he's able to recover off the ball, especially on the perimeter. So I'm excited to see all his
ability, Sam, his ability to fight through screens was really special this past year. And I think you're right. I think we just got glimpses of what he can be as a defender. And it's going to be even better as a sophomore.
So, Jason, let's come back and talk about the three-point shooting. I know that you were looking at the development of players from freshman to sophomore, and I think we talked during the NBA draft preview episodes about some notable recent examples of Blue Devils who stuck around for their sophomore campaigns and improved their draft stock. I think Luke Kennard is one that we love bringing up on this show. Grayson Allen certainly went from bench player to All-American starter in his sophomore year. So tell me what you found.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not much deeper than what you just went through. I went back and I looked. I went from 2016 till the present, which is when one and done, really, really started to take off, especially in recent years. And the honest to God truth is that Duke hasn't had a lot of sophomores who played a significant role as a freshman. For the most part, if you play a significant role as a freshman, you tend to move on. You tend to say, okay, I'm ready for the NBA. So there aren't a ton of guys to talk about with this. But as we go back year by year, last year, this year, of course, the only one we had, by the way, was Jalen Blakes, who really, basically didn't play as a freshman, only in true mop-up time. And he certainly was much improved this year, played a larger role, significantly larger role this year than he did last year. And it's worth noting that his outside shooting, his 3-point shot, improved from less than 30% to almost 35%, which is a decent, significant jump. You're going to hear a theme here from me about that. So 2022, last year, we had two guys, Mark Williams and Jeremy Roach, who were sophomores. Mark Williams, of course, went from being a minor player for Duke to one of the best big men in the country. Jeremy Roach, interestingly, unlike other freshmen, sophomores, and I want to be clear that like not every sophomore gets a lot better. Let's just be honest. Jeremy Roach really wasn't significantly better as a sophomore than he was as a freshman until late in the year. We all talked about how he made the leap, that we had March Roach at a certain point, tournament Roach. But for most of the year, Jeremy Roach was fairly similar as a sophomore than he was as a freshman. Now, go back to 2021. Matthew Hurt, Wendell Moore. Those are the two guys that are sophomores that year. Matthew Hurt, you look at his like usage rate, his shooting percentages, they skyrocket from freshman to sophomore year. Wendell Moore really improved his outside shooting freshman to sophomore year. Wendell Moore only hit 21% of his three-pointers as a freshman. He was up above 30%, just barely, but above 30% as a sophomore. And of course, that evolved even further when he got to be a junior. Again, this theme, guys just always seem to get better with their outside shot after they've been in school for a year. In 2020, Trey Jones was the man. I mean, his assist rate skyrocketed. His three-point field goal rate went from 26% to 36%, a 10 percentage point jump. That's massive. And you mentioned some of the older ones, Luke Kennard, who went from hitting only 32% of his threes to hitting better than 44%. Grayson Allen went from hitting about 34% of his threes as a freshman to hitting 42% as a sophomore. There are plenty of other guys. Look, they're Alex O'Connell, Jordan Goldwire, Javin DeLaurier, Marquise Bolden, Jack White. But none of those guys played nearly as much freshman year as Tyrese Proctor did. Again, I think the comparisons for Proctor, the appropriate comparisons, are these guys who played a significant amount. And in that regard, you're talking about the Mark Williamses, Jeremy Roach, Wendell Moore, Trey Jones, Luke Kennard, and Grayson Allen. And that list just screams guys who took a sophomore year jump.
And on top of that, he gets the extra summer working with John Shire, and we know what a crafty point guard John Shire was in college, and all the sort of intangibles that he brought to the team from the point guard position. I imagine that Proctor spending even more time with him is going to, pay off in all kinds of ways that you can't necessarily quantify on the court. But Shire's going to love having a returning point guard like that at the helm. So, of course, the option that Tyrese Proctor had was to declare for the NBA draft. We hadn't seen mock drafts that had him listed high enough, or if at all, to suggest that he was strongly considering leaving. But Jason, what do you think returning for his sophomore year does for Tyrese Proctor's draft stock in the 2024 NBA draft?
So there's no question that his draft stock had improved lately. That, we talked Tyrese Proctor's play down the stretch. Look, his play in the Tennessee game, late in that Tennessee game, when he was carrying Duke, attempting to get us back into the game, his stock improved, and NBA scouts started to see things that made them perk up their eyes a little bit. ESPN, I don't want to be clear, ESPN's not the only, mock draft source out there, but ESPN had him today as the 30th best prospect in all of college basketball. That's not not everyone's going to declare and things like that. But by the way, they're 31st round picks. So ESPN essentially said, if you let everybody declare who's allowed to declare, we think Tyrese Proctor is among the top 30. We think he's a first round draft pick. Again, I don't know that other teams would have said the same thing. I don't know that other mocks would have said the same thing, but you're starting to look at, maybe Tyrese Proctor had a shot at being a first rounder or getting a guaranteed contract. And typically guys like that, Trevor Keels is a great example. Those guys turn pro. They don't come back to Duke. I'm going to tell you why I think Tyrese Proctor made a really smart decision. Let's say ESPN is correct, Sam. Let's say that Tyrese Proctor was going to be the 30th pick in this year's draft. If that had happened, he would have signed a contract that would have been worth approximately $1.98 million for his first year and $2.08 million for his second year. So right at $4 million for his first two seasons. But I'm going to tell you something. Everyone who's starting to put together 2024 mock drafts is looking at Tyrese Proctor as a potential lottery pick. First, the 2024 draft is not as strong or as deep as the 2023 draft. And also everyone's like, look, we've seen this kid starting to grow up and develop. If we see more of that, he could really vault his way into the lottery, maybe even high into the lottery. But I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to say, let's say he's just the 12th pick. He's at the very end of the lottery in 2024. His rookie year, his first year, he'll make more than $4.1 million. That means in his first year, he will make more than the 2 combined years if he's the 30th pick in the draft. You following my math? If he's the 30th pick, he makes $2 million a year. If he's the 12th pick next year, he makes more than $4 million a year. It is a smart financial move. Again, if he's going to play well, if he's going to vault himself into the lottery, which everyone seems to think is a distinct possibility for Tyrese Proctor, the exponential way that your contract jumps if you go in those first 15 picks or so make this potentially a really smart financial move for Tyrese Proctor.
Not to mention whatever sponsorship opportunities he gets as a visible sophomore at Duke, because I imagine that gets much easier now that he's been around and that the
question
Duke community knows him better going into the season. Jason, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we have to update you on how well the Duke commits performed in the non-game day activities at the McDonald's All-American game this week. So stick around. We are back, and one thing, Jason, I feel like we should have mentioned at the top of the program is that you may notice that this show has a slightly different look in your podcast feed if you were looking at it before you listened or before you downloaded today. We're in the process of the transition away from SB Nation's legacy podcast hosting platform. So as you notice, it's still us. You haven't subscribed to a new show. Your podcast catcher has not decided to go ChatGPT on recommendations for basketball programming. This is still the same show. We're not renaming as of today. We will be announcing the new name and maybe some slightly updated branding very soon because our contracts with SB Nation, I think, run out at the end of March, which is coming up very soon. So, but we're still here. There's no sort of big announcement coming, just for your information. Okay, let's get back to the basketball now that we've cleared out the logistics.
Yeah.
So Monday at the McDonald's All-American game was all of the what you might think of at the NBA All-Star game as like the pregame events, the slam dunk contest, the 3-point shooting, etc. And Duke commits tonight, Jason, had a pretty good evening. It started with the 3-point contest, which was won by Jared McCain. We talked when we were doing the NBA draft, will he or won't he decision shows about how Jared McCain as an incoming shooter is going to have some impact on the Duke roster next year and potentially where the touches are going. Jared McCain showed out remarkably well tonight at the McDonald's All-American 3-point contest by winning that. And then the closing event of the evening was the dunk contest, which was won by Duke commit Sean Stewart, the power forward who is not getting as much attention, I think, as Mackenzie Mbako, but is someone who we're all very excited about. And I think also fun for the broadcasters and sponsors of this event because he beat Bronny James in the final for this dunk contest. So pretty cool. And Bronny James brought out his younger brother Bryce as part of the festivities. And I think Sean Stewart had Mackenzie Mbako on hand to help him out. So,
right. So you talk about
lots of teammate action in here. So what did you see this evening from McCain and Stewart?
Right. So you were talking about Sean Stewart and Mackenzie Mbako, and I wanted to say, Sean Stewart has leaped over Mackenzie Mbako in the mind of Duke fans. I don't know if that's the case, but Sean Stewart quite literally did a windmill dunk over Mackenzie Mbako during the slam dunk contest. It was ridiculous. It was outrageous. It brought the house down. Somehow Bronny James doing something similar over his considerably shorter younger brother also made people cheer. I don't know. I think that doing it over 6'8" Mackenzie Mbako is a little more impressive than doing it over your little brother, who's probably like maybe 6 feet. But it was a great show by Sean Stewart, and everyone wanted to give the prize to Bronny James. So the fact that Sean Stewart won it took a little extra effort. But the guy I want to talk about is Jared McCain. Oh my goodness. He practically lapped the field in winning the 3-point shooting contest. Like when he took his shots, the top score was 19. Jared McCain ended up scoring 27 in the 3-point shooting contest. At one point, I counted, Sam, what would be a ridiculous number of 3-pointers to hit in a row? What do you think? What's the number? What's a crazy, if I said to you, you won't believe how many 3-pointers this guy hit in a row?
I would say 8.
Okay, you're wrong because it was 11. He hit 11 3-pointers in a row, including his money ball rack. You know, they have one rack where all the balls count for double, and they're all like, you know, special colored red, white, and blue and stuff like that. His money ball rack was right at the top of the circle, a direct straight on shot. A lot of guys put their money ball rack in the corner because supposedly the corner 3 is a little bit easier. But Jared McCain has unlimited range. He has such effortless motion that he put it dead in the middle, and he drained every single one of his money balls. Again, 11 3-pointers in a row he hit at one point. He was outrageous. And there have been some reports. There's been some information coming out of some of the scrimmages and practices that have been going on for the past couple of days, the McDonald's All-American stuff. And they had a scrimmage on Sunday, and the best player in the scrimmage was DeJuan Wagner, who's headed to Kentucky. But supposedly, like right on his heels, as one of the absolute best players at the McDonald's All-American Game scrimmage was Jared McCain. And the guys who were watching this, you know, the professional scouts in the Dutch, just said that he just always looks like he's having fun, but he's always incredibly aggressive. He's incredibly confident and just has such a wide array of shot making. You know, we see him shooting these 3-pointers, but he can do so much more than just hit 3-pointers. And he's incredibly comfortable either with the ball in his hands or playing off the ball. It was really great to get these reports, you know, from these scouts who just say that Jared McCain looked like, you know, one of the top 3 guys or so at the McDonald's All-American practices, because he doesn't necessarily have that reputation. And I wanted to mention Sean Stewart as well. The reports coming out are that he's just an Energizer bunny, constantly playing with energy and moving around and attacking rebounds. This is a guy who, you know, people are sort of unsure. Oh, is he going to play a forward? Is he going to play center at Duke? I actually think there's a decent chance we're going to see Sean Stewart playing a good bit of center because he's just so aggressive about going after rebounds. I think that may suit his role at Duke really nicely.
And of course, he has to complement what Mackenzie Mbako is bringing, because Mbako probably has the higher ceiling between the two, but it does seem like Sean Stewart is going to play a massive role for Duke. Again,
yeah, I'll tell you, by the way, I have not, I've been looking around. I haven't seen much reporting at all about Mackenzie Mbako. And I don't know, it's possible. I think maybe that he's been a little bit banged up, but there haven't been any reports of how he's been doing at the scrimmages and practices. We'll probably know more at the McDonald's All-American Game that happens tomorrow night. And we will do a podcast where we talk about the results of that game in the next couple of days.
And it also depends on whether Kyle Filipowski is returning to Duke. That's
a big part of the equation.
A big unknown, in addition to Mark Mitchell, neither of whom has declared their intentions yet, but would certainly be battling for minutes with those two guys. Hey, Jason, before we get out of here, we do have to mention that on the women's side, Duke secured the return of Celeste Taylor today. Taylor, of course, was one of the stars for Duke this year, having transferred from Texas a couple years ago. And in Taylor, Duke brings back 11 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game, not to mention one of the most outstanding performances in the NCAA tournament so far.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, we talked about the women unfortunately going out in the round of 32, not making it to the Sweet 16, and we noted that Celeste Taylor had that amazing game where she had 10 rebounds, 10 steals, 8 points, and 8 assists, darn close to a quadruple double, which is outrageous, ridiculous, like unheard of. And at the time, I sort of asked, and I was like, God, she's got a 5th COVID year. Maybe we'll get it. But we sort of thought we kind of wouldn't. To get this news is just huge news for the Duke women's team. And she's going to be a huge leader on that team. She's going to be someone who's in the conversation for ACC Player of the Year and for All-American kind of honors. And, you know, I get the impression that she came back because she recognizes, sort of the same way Tyrese Proctor did, that there's unfinished business. The Duke women had an incredibly impressive season this year, and they earned a very high seed in the NCAA tournament. And their tournament performance wasn't what they'd hoped it would be. I think Celeste Taylor's coming back because, like Tyrese Proctor said, she wants banners, and she knows that next year Duke's going to have a chance to hang some laundry.
I've never heard the expression "hang some laundry," but I think I like it.
There you go, man.
I mean, I've heard it in the context of I need to dry my clothes and they don't belong in the dryer, but I'm not sure that I've ever heard it in the context of hanging banners. So thank you for adding that this evening to my lexicon. Jason, I think that's it for tonight. Of course, we'll be back if there are any more commitments. We heard some rumblings today that maybe there are more coming in this week, but we don't know anything definitive, so we won't speculate too blindly on that.
Yeah, Duke basketball usually tries to space these things out. They want each guy to get his own news cycle, so to speak. And I wouldn't be shocked. And I'll look, obviously, some of the guys may not have made up their mind yet. I've heard some whispering, some talk that at least one of the player, Kyle Filipowski specifically, that Kyle may be, really unsure what he wants to do. And so he may not have made up his mind yet. But my bet is that we'll over the next week to 2 weeks, we'll get sort of one of these every few days. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the next one we get is someone declaring for the NBA draft or something like that. It's possible they wait for the NBA draft declarations until after the Duke basketball banquet. Sometimes guys don't want to announce that they're leaving prior to the banquet. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know that there's that. Sam, there's not really a negative stigma to leaving early for the NBA anymore. So
not anymore. I think that, as you said, the program likes them to get their own news cycle, right? It's an excuse for Brendan Marks to write a whole article about them as opposed to having to lump them all together into one. So they're helping themselves by getting more attention, and they're helping those of us that talk about Duke basketball to have more excuses to get online and do just that.
I will say it is worth noting that we are currently 1 for 1 on our predictions of what Duke basketball players will do. And again, if you have not listened to the 2 previous episodes where we discuss what the guards and wings will do and what the big men will do, go back and listen to those, because we told you Tyrese Proctor would be coming back. So we're 1 for 1 so far. I hope we go 10 for 10.
If only so that we can
brag about it.
Exactly. That's really the point of the exercise here. So we'll see what further announcements come this week. As Jason mentioned, we'll definitely be back to recap any highlights from the McDonald's All-American game that you all should know about. But until those things happen, for Jason Evans, for Donald Wine, who's not here, but assured us that he is also excited that Tyrese Proctor is returning to Duke. I guarantee.
And Celeste Taylor. Donald's excited about
Celeste
those.
Taylor.
Yes.
So all of today is good news as far as Donald is concerned. For those guys, I'm Sam Klein. This, for now, is still the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Email us. You'll be able to continue to email us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be back again soon. Duke Band, take us home.